Josh Hennig here on 97.3 ESPN. Bellator MMA is back with just a crazy card. They got a pay-per-view fight and a fight on Spike TV. All kinds of title fights on tap. Of course, on the pay-per-view side, you have Chael Sonnen versus Wanderlei Silva finally getting their revenge. But the fighter I have on now, he is going to be getting a rematch with Phil Davis. He's a former UFC fighter. He's the number 3 ranked light heavyweight fighter in the world, according to ShareDog.com. Ryan Bader. Ryan, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Just in New York City, waiting for tonight and getting it done.
Ryan, you have faced Phil Davis before. You know, you guys had a split decision. It was a really grinding fight. You both come from wrestling backgrounds. You went to Arizona State. He went to Penn State. Talk about what it's like to go into a fight with a guy like Phil Davis who comes from such a high caliber of wrestling background such as yourself.
You know, he actually beat me in college wrestling back in the day, a close match, and and then I come out and beat him in a close mixed martial arts fight. It's one of those fights where I walked out of there and I wasn't really impressed with what transpired in there. I didn't feel like it was me in there, but I ended up getting the win anyway, and so now I get to put the stamp on it. You know, he's a great wrestler. He's a competitor, tough fighter. You know, I feel like I've grown so much from that fight that it's going to be completely different than the first fight. You know, we were fighting at 4 a.m. in Sweden over there. I feel like my skill set's grown tremendously since then. I'm a better fighter, better version of myself, and I feel like I've grown more than Phil Davis has. You know, so that's going to be the difference. You know, and if you look back historically, he has kind of trouble with wrestlers. You know, all his losses are to wrestlers, and his last fight with King Mo a couple fights ago, he had trouble with him. You know, it was a really close fight, could have gone either way. You know, so that being said, he's a good wrestler, and I have to watch out for that also.
You mentioned that you feel that your game has grown a lot since the last time you two fought. That was 2 years ago. What aspects of your game have you feel have specifically evolved and gotten better?
I got a new coaching staff kind of prior to the Nogueira fight, and ton of drilling, ton of technique work, which I've never really done. I've always kind of been the mentality of the wrestling mentality where we warm up and go live and drill here and there, but not really put a lot of emphasis on it. So, for me to be able to drill these techniques and go over and over again, and when I hit mitts, I'm able to, we're hitting mitts with a purpose and pads with a purpose. You know, we're going over, if he does this, I do this, I start with this, and watch out for this, footwork on the way out, that kind of stuff, and I feel like I've grown more in these last 6-7 months than I have in the last 5 years, and my mentality after my last loss, I said, all right, we're going to make it fun again, we're going to keep it light, went out there and finished 2 top 10 opponents my last 2 fights, so it just changed the mentality, changing my camp and how I work, and really changed it all around. So it wasn't one little thing; it was everything.
You're going to be fighting for the Bellator light heavyweight title tonight on Spike TV. This is an opportunity that you didn't get to have in the UFC. Obviously, various situations came up in politics and so on. So talk about what it means for you to finally get a shot at the belt.
Yeah, it means everything. That's all I wanted. It was an opportunity, and there was times, I lost big fights here and there in the UFC, and there's times I shouldn't have been put in, but there was times where I should have been, I was teed up, right, for the title, and then was told, go out and win this fight, and you'll for sure get a title. That didn't happen, and they give it to somebody that, comes off a knockout loss in his previous fight. He gets the title, and so at that point I was kind of, I don't know the word here I was looking for, but I was just kind of, with the UFC, I wasn't in the right mental spot then. I was just kind of looking, all right, I started looking at my contract, when are my fights up? All right, and so they gave me a contract before my last fight, and I said, no thanks, I'm going to pass and fight it out, and I did, and kind of knowing that I was going to go see what offer Bellator was going to give me, and 85% sure I maybe was going to leave if we got what we wanted. Got what we wanted, and kind of knew that UFC wasn't going to be able to, or wasn't wanting to match, that, because it's a great contract, and then I left, and the day after, I see that they signed to fight Madison Square Garden on pay-per-view and Spike TV, and just reaffirmed everything I did was the right decision, and here we are fighting for a title.
What do you feel the biggest differences between the UFC and Bellator?
Well, I went to my first Bellator event, 3 months ago or so in Chicago, and just the way we're treated, it was just a night and day, and it was refreshing and it felt good, and there's a lot of things from being able to have your sponsors and all that, but I would say the number one thing was respect and the treatment of us, and it's like I said, it was refreshing after so long of being not really an individual, just another, a filler or whatnot. I felt like I was treated with respect, and it felt good.
Scott Coker's the head of Bellator MMA. He's been around the fight game for a long time. He's the head man at Strikeforce beforehand. He also did a lot of work in Japan. Talk about what makes Scott Coker unique, because I know a lot of people, they know who Dana White is because of the UFC, but they don't know as much about Scott Coker. So tell the audience a little bit about Scott.
So I've never met Scott until the negotiations with Bellator, and I flew out there and sat down for lunch with him and Rich Chow, and was able to speak with him. And I asked him, what's his plan for me? What's his plan for Bellator? Where's Bellator going? And one thing I take away from him was, he was transparent and completely honest. He said some things to me that a promoter usually wouldn't say, and it was completely open and honest about it. And that was refreshing. Also, it was one of those things that you usually don't hear. And so I could tell, if he comes up and tells me something, that's going to be his word, and he's going to try to stick to that. And I think he gets that respect back from people because he comes off like that, And so, you get the vibe where he's in it for the fighters also. Not just to make a buck and for the promotion, and you're just a cog in the wheel. He respects you, and he knows that the fighters are what makes the organization what it is.
Ryan Bader, he's fighting for the Bellator light heavyweight title tonight versus Phil Davis at Bellator 180, part of a massive event Bellator is holding in New York City. Bellator NYC, Sonnen versus Silva tonight on pay-per-view, and then Davis versus Bader tonight on Spike TV at 8 p.m. is the start. Ryan, you're 34 years old. You've been doing this for a long time. What are your short and long-term goals at this point in MMA?
I feel like I'm the best physically and mentally I've ever been. I've been doing this a long time, but, one of the stats I'm most proud of when I was fighting in the UFC is one of the least hit guys in the UFC, and I feel like my body's young. My mind is definitely young. I feel good. So it's one of those things where I'm going to do it until I don't want to train anymore, and I don't want to put it in the work. I don't want to half-ass this. It's a sport that you can't be a half-time or a part-timer, and so it's just right now, I have a 6-fight contract with Bellator. I'm looking to go out there, win the belt, and keep it throughout those 6 fights, 5 more fights, and then renegotiate an even better contract and do it again, and then see where I go from there. So I don't even have a date or an age. I think as soon as you start doing that, you're already on that slope, that downhill slope on the other side. So I'm feeling good, ready to go.
You're married. You have 3 kids. There's a lot of fighters that don't have families. You're one of them. Talk about what having a family means to you as a fighter.
Yeah, it's for me, it's just, I'm a fighter from, when I'm training and when I'm here, and when I'm in the cage. But the other times, I'm a father, husband, friend, all that other stuff, business owner, and it's just one of those things where it's just extra motivation, and you want to do it for them, you want to make them proud, and and I have that switch where I can flip it on and off. I know a lot of guys that all they do is they train, they go home and they sleep and nap, and then they go train and play video games and do that. And at one point in my life, I did that also. But I just feel like I have more to lose now, and so I work extra hard.
He's fighting today for the Bellator Light Heavyweight Championship versus Phil Davis. He is Ryan Bader. Ryan, before I let you go, and I appreciate the time today, give the audience one thing to watch for tonight when you take on Phil Davis.
Yeah, it's just going to be a completely different fight than the first fight. You know, it's just I'm a completely different fighter. The belt's on the line, so I'm going to go in there, push the action. You know, and I want to go out there and finish a guy that hasn't been finished. You know, and do it in style, get that belt wrapped around my waist in Madison Square Garden, and show the fans that not only am I a new fighter here in Bellator, you know, but I have this belt and I'm going to keep it for a long, long time.
Well, Brian, I'm looking forward to seeing the fight today. I know you've been working toward this opportunity for a long time. I wish you the best of luck, and I hope to see that belt wrapped around your waist tonight.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it.